Bam, 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 bam. So live. I think someone's in the chat. All right, Carl, how's it going? Joined by Sudoku. If anyone's watching, let me know how the mic sounds. It's on a lapel mic rather than hello. How we doing, Dom? Howard? Don't be fuming, mate. Honestly, 14 minutes late. It's down to my own things. I've had to use a VPN for this to work. It's doing me fucking in. Sort this out a bit better. Look at these production issues live. Love it. Does that sound any better? Should sound a little bit better now, to be honest with you. Let's have a look. See what we've got. Nice. Right, got my Sudoku book with me. We've had to go. Yeah, it's not a bad idea, that actually. Let's try this. This may work, it may not. Does that sound any better? Getting funny looks. Right, got the Sudoku book here because we're going old school. We've got questions wrote down from the scene chat. I don't have my laptop with me, but got the mic, got the live chat. So we're going to do a bit of a going all Sam Sulek. Yeah, been for a big lift before this as well, so I'll look hard as fuck. No. So what we're going to do, we're going to be doing a bit of an ask me anything. So this is more directed at me as well. So we've got the questions from the listeners, which we'll be going through, but live questions can come in, so you can ask anything you want. You can ask what I had for tea. You can ask my favourite DJ. You can ask how I plan my sets, production questions. There's a couple of production questions that's in here today. We've been getting a few of the off-record anonymous submissions. People actually leaving their names now, so people's confidence is slowly building up, which I'm buzzing about. So we'll give it a minute, and what we'll do is we'll see who joins. This isn't the best way to do it, but we're in Greece. What else can I do? How have your poops been? Do you find it different when you go on holiday? Yeah, fucking right. This is disgusting, but we'll talk about it anyways. My shits are different. Just because I don't have protein powder whilst I'm on holiday, because you can't take it through customs. We learned that the hard way. Don't have creatine either whilst I'm on holiday. So I tried the capsules, but they were a bit shit. So it does actually change my shit, if anyone wanted to know that. Turns. Come on, Howard, you're going to be more specific on this one. Turns. But yeah, and I eat shit on holiday as well. Like, I've had loads of ice cream, so as you can imagine, it's not great. What did we do? Oh, it's last night tonight, so I'm coming home tomorrow morning. So we went out and had some Greek food. It was the worst day of food on the holiday. My missus didn't even eat the food. Gave back the starter. The main was she shared mine because hers wasn't that good. I ate hers, and then she didn't even have the dessert, and I had the dessert. So yeah, feeling a bit chunky at the minute. For anyone who wants to know as well, I'll put in the description after the fact today that I'm doing the Great North Run in just over 6 weeks. So if anyone wants to sponsor, feel free to do so as well. Right, so we'll just get kick-started with today. If anyone's got any questions throughout this, then obviously let me know. But these are questions that's been submitted from off record, so the Google form that I put out. It's anonymous questions. As I say every week, if anybody wants to put submissions in, feel free to do so. We're going to kick off with some of the more controversial questions, and then we'll get onto the production side of things because there's some really good ones on here. This one was sent in this afternoon, and I thought, you know what, we'll do a new one that's in there. Do you think that the main stage DJs get in the limelight and too many bookings whenever, even though they don't produce their own music, but literally, sorry, I can't even read my own writing. I do apologise, this is amateur. Do you think the main stage DJs get in the limelight and the bookings whenever, even though they don't produce their own music and act like they do, This is something we talk about this in different forms most weeks. The subject is getting boring, but I'll keep it short and sweet. It's not something I personally agree with. I think if people's passing the work off as their own, I think it's a bit shitty, if I'm honest with you. Stinks a decoy that. I don't know who Decoy is. Oh, sorry, I do know who Decoy is. I've seen his things, right? But with this, I do have my opinions. We have it pretty good in the scene we're in, because I know this is not just about saying and watch this anymore. There's actually a few various people. I know there's people from hardcore watch this. I know there's people from the old school scene who watch this, and we all have a similar problem within the scene. There's a lot of people who's headlining gigs who don't produce their own music, and I would love to say that they don't deserve the place, but in a lot of cases they bring something different to the table. How's it going? DJ LP, nice one. Hi Lewis. How's it going? Right, yep. So literally Dom says it in there about ghosting. It happens, but that's where I was going to get into. If you think it's bad in our scene, if you go to the commercial scenes, it is just insane. There is people who are sitting in someone else's studio pretending they've made the tunes when they haven't. I don't agree with that one bit. You get people, if you look at writers on big tunes, like the classic example everyone uses is the Beyonce thing. You know, Beyonce doesn't claim to have produced the track. She sang on it, and she's the main artist on it. But there's session singers doing backup vocals, the session musicians playing the instruments. There's engineers, there's mastering engineers. There's like 70 people on a Beyonce record. If you are trying to pass something off as your own when you've done absolutely nothing, yeah, that's I can see why it's annoying. The classic example is someone like a Steve Aoki. Steve Aoki is somebody in the scene, like within his scene, he's a brand, he's a face, he's known for 1,000,001 different things. The same goes for Fisher as well. I think it's Chris Lake who makes Fisher stuff, but like they've built their DJing is around the whole marketing of who they are and what they're about. And I don't necessarily agree with it, because for me, I appreciate somebody like the Beatles who wrote music, played music, and that's theirs, over somebody like One Direction who, I know it's a bit of a niche reference that, but like One Direction literally get given the tracks written for them. They're a made boy band by record labels, as an example. I think it's a bit, it's not unauthentic, and I think it shows in the music, and I think it shows in people's music in our scene as well. If you're in our scene and you're trying to pass music off as like you've made it, I think it's smarmy, but I don't think it'll never change. We're at a point now where if someone brings like expert marketing or unbelievable DJing to the equation, it sort of outshines the music nowadays, which is it's unfortunate. Let me just check that with a question there. Live chat. It's always happened though, has it not? In every genre of music, as Dom says, if it's a good track, it's a good track. Yeah, absolutely. I do think you need to give credit where it's due, though. I've heard some horrible horror stories in the past where engineers and writers of tracks have purposely went out the way to discredit somebody on a record release, and I'm talking on something like a Universal Music or a Ministry of Sound or Sony Music. If you're releasing on these big labels and you're not crediting the engineer just to pass it off as your own, I think that's a bit shit, because at the end of the day, if I hear a song, let's say I hear a pop song and I had the fame and money to work with that person, I would like, who's engineered this, because I need that sound. It's like with any band. I'm a big fan of the Smashing Pumpkins. If I want to know how they get their guitars sounding the way they get their guitars sounding, I would want to go to the source of how it was done. I know who've done that because I know who their engineer was. It was Butch Vig and Billy Corgan's Ideas, which then went on to obviously produce Nirvana's iconic sound. But the reason I say this is because Nirvana as a band went to that engineer and went, I want to sound like these guys, because it's not really. We're in a scene now where every release that comes out, it's literally, I'm going to say 2/3 of the people, maybe even more, who's releasing aren't actually making their own music. So if you take that away, there wouldn't be much music to choose from. Do you know what I mean? One thing that's gone missing off. Sorry, I actually think that Dom's wrote it in the comments as well. One thing that's gone missing nowadays, you can actually go and check it on Discogs, but with physical media, you used to be able to get a record and you could look at the sleeve of the record or on the back or in the inserts, or you could actually see on the record that it was written and produced, who the vocalist was, where it was mastered at, what studio it was made in, and all them details. That's what I was obsessed with when I was like, when I collect records. I'm like, I want to know who made it, and then you end up down a rabbit hole. Like, I still buy music off Discogs now, and if I discover a new tune and I'm like, oh, I love the way that was written, I'll look who the writer was, because then I can go onto their Discogs and check out what they've written and what else they've done, and you find yourself down a rabbit hole. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. Gonna ask this one's coming from Adam Donnelly. He's actually put his name on this one as well. And again, if anyone's got any questions, just feel free to ask if you've got any questions on here. But Adam Donnelly wrote in and he said, do you think that there's MCs out there who regret saying a rhyme, or they've dropped saying a rhyme now because it's maybe dated or it's maybe wrong in today's culture? I can't really answer you on that one, but I thought it was a good enough question that I could switch it up a little bit and bring it into from my point of view where I can answer this. I think there is MCs out there. I'm sure Finchy's definitely one of them, where he's said rhymes, 15, 20 years ago, and he's like, I don't think I'd say that in today's, and it may be just because it's a point of place of life where he's at. I've used Finchy an example, but I'm sure there's loads out there who've got rhymes who they cringe when they hear it. For me personally, and John can attest to this because we've sat and talked about this over and over, we've done records that don't sound, or we've played tunes that don't sound well now, that did maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, because you play a modern set now. I'm not saying playing a classic set, by the way. If you play a classic set, you can still play all the classics, absolutely. But if you're playing a modern set to a new crowd, there's some tunes that you just cannot pull out because they don't sound as loud. They don't sound as polished as the newer stuff, which again we've had to go into our back catalogue of our record collections, our remixes themselves, and had to beef them up to be able to be playable. Now there's actually tunes that we're sitting on where John sent me like a list of stuff, and he's went, we should sort these out. If we should make them playable in the newer sets and make them more manicky, which makes sense. There is like tracks like Now, for instance, and this is nothing against the track. It's a really good track, but I'll use this the other day because I was listening to it on Spotify. But Darude Sandstorm, the extended mix of that, it sounded really good, 20 years ago. But you try and play that with a modern track, it hasn't got the loudness or it hasn't got the punch. So what you can do is you can go in, you can bootleg it and make it and beef it up a little bit, make it more modern sounding. So in regards to that, Adam, like, I know I've only adapted it to how I play, but that's how I do things. Like, if there's a tune that's so good that you can't drop it out your sets, but you want to be able to play it in newer sets, I'd change it up. I would never drop something. If it's timeless, it's timeless. And I'll do what I can not to edit a track. For instance, like Wand Happiness. I think Wand Happiness is one of them tunes I would never edit to beef up. I've heard some horrendous remixes of it, and I'm going to say as plain as I can, absolute dog shit remixes of it as well, where it just sounds shite. That's not me being like negative, but like, don't touch it if it doesn't need it. It still sounds punchy in a club. It's still, even when you mix it with modern stuff, it still stands the test of time, in my opinion. Whereas, what was I playing the other week? I think I was going to play it as classic of the week. It might have been Pearl River. what is the guy? Johnny. La 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 la. Oh my god, my mind's gone blank. Johnny Shaker, Pearl River. I don't know why it took me so long there. If you try and mix that into the modern sound, I have to crank it right up, and it still doesn't quite cut through into the newer. That I'll just give you an example there, but there's a million and one examples that we could use. I know there's a few producers out there as well who've been beefing the records up as well. So there is that. Like I said, there's a few in the room now. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, so like Dom said there, one should never be touched. I agree with that because, like I say, it's a classic. It doesn't need anything. If it sounded weak or if it sounded like a bit weak in the low end when you're mixing it, add a sub underneath there, but it's something that doesn't need it. It's already got all the magic you need it. Playing old tracks in big clubs, the sub goes missing. It absolutely does. A lot of the time you'll find as well with the tracks that we play as classics, i.e. something like a Res Q someday, it might need pitched up a little bit, well, quite significant amount now to be able to play at the BPMs we play at now. We play in and around, say, 148 to 150-ish at peak time. Well, I do at least. And yeah, as soon as you pitch it up, it loses a lot of the sub. But that's when you would do like a remake of a track if it was needed, or I just wouldn't play it in that set. Like if I was playing a classic set, I'll be playing much slower anyways, so it's a bit irrelevant. Sorry, this isn't staying on, so I'm not seeing you when it comes in. I missed a couple of comments there. Hi Jew, how's it going? How are we doing? Michael Park. Michael Park, nice one for tuning in. Michael reached out the other day. He's been sort of getting his name in and about there. Seems like a really nice guy. Hope to see in a couple of gigs that's coming up at some point. But again, I'm not just saying this. I don't know the guy. I never met him in my life, but he handled, in my opinion, it handled it the right way. When he reached out to me, sort of introduced himself, told me what he was about, saying about gigs and things like that. Basically, just being a nice guy, and we had a mutual interest in wrestling and things like that. So we talked about that a little bit, and he was cool. Like I like that. That's the proper way to do it. The reason I'm saying that is because there's other people who's been added me on here, follow me, and subscribing to the YouTube thing, and just throwing like a SoundCloud link at me. I'm like, what am I meant to do with that? What you want me to listen to your full SoundCloud? You want me to listen to a single track? What? No high or anything like that. So nice one, Michael Park. Again, I will listen to the mix that you sent over it as well at some point when I get the chance. John G's in the room. There's a few that just aren't thick enough, unfortunately. One I still play is Insight, if that's all right with you. I mentioned this to Pete Monsoon to speak to Si. Listen, I engineered that one for Cal that you did with Leah, with release on Manic Music. You can go and check that out. Really good tune. I enjoy it. But I think John's got an affinity to the Insight version. I think that's the reason why he doesn't play that version. That's just I might be wrong there, but yeah. John, Pearl River is amazing and should never be touched apart from the levels. This is exactly it. Me and John were having a conversation the other day about. I sent him an Italian tune that I liked. I was like, we could steal ideas from this. I would never ever touch it as a remix, but there's a couple of things in there where there's like a couple of vocal stutters, a couple of chord progressions and little melodies we could steal, or take inspiration from at least. And I'll be honest with you, it's I would 100% do that, but I would never. There's certain tunes that really just don't need to be touched. Pearl River is obviously one of them. It just hit the right spot at the right time for when it came out as well. It was perfect vibe for in and around that time. Sorry, I've got to keep on uploading this thing. We've got a few comments in here. Sorry, I'm just keeping up with this. I have got a bit of a boring. I mean, if there's any producers in the room, we won't find it too boring, but I've got a boring production question here to go through as well. I think there's a difference between remaking a track and remastering a track, though. Absolutely, you can remaster some stuff and again, I've seen DJs who aren't producers do this, and they've actually done fantastic jobs of it as well. who've went, you know what, this isn't quite punching through in my mixes, and they've edited it slightly. And I'm the same with editing tracks as well. I don't know if you do this in yourselves, let me know in the comments, because I'll be interested to know who else does this. I absolutely I edit tracks down now. I've talked about it with John. I think I've talked about it with Dom as well, and Cal. Some tracks now, like when you play a classic, the attention span is just not there for people. If you're playing live in a club, you can use hot cues and things like that. But I think if you want some nice smooth transitions, do you, as a DJ, if you're watching this, do you trim your tracks down? I do in some cases. If I make like a little edit of a tune, sometimes you have to. Me and John call it cut the fat. You know, cut the fat out of a track, and so it keeps the attention of the dance floor. It's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in. It's 2026. I like to come prepared and have edits. I know Carl just said that I found hot cues can eradicate the need to make edits. I agree with that. Hot cues are good. Sometimes as well you can do so. I agree. Cut the tracks down. Sometimes classics needs trimming to keep it moving and quick. Absolutely, LP. This is where we are. 2026. Would I prefer it if we were still in 2005 and we were getting to appreciate the full tune, appreciate a good bridge in a tune, the TikTok generation, that's it. A good bridge in a tune, a good like key change towards the back end of a tune that's a little bit different from the first breakdown. I know there's certain rules with certain DJs that I've spoke to that's fairly prominent in the scene. Is now they won't play the second breakdown ever. They'll either set up an edit or a hot cue and mix it out as soon as the first drops, as soon as the first breakdown's hit and it's kicked back in. It's shocking sometimes, because a lot of the time the last breakdown's the part that captures people's imagination, where it's like, I know there's a million and one tracks out there, but like, for instance, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like, if that's all right with you, Insight, for me, the version that Carl did, if you listen to that last breakdown, it's the best part of the whole track. You've got the main hook that everybody knows. You've got the riff. You've got the bridge section where a lot of people do mix out of it. But for me, the best part of that track is that piano on the breakdown at the end. I feel like a lot of DJs nowadays are mixing the tunes out far too early, but then they're doing it for the right reasons. They're reading the crowd and going, right, okay, well, if this is going to go into second breakdown, I'm going to lose them a little bit, so get it mixed out into the next bit, so give them that dopamine hit again. So I do understand it, and I'm going to say who was an absolute artist at this, and I witnessed it live. I was there, and I'd just seen, and I think I've talked about it in the past, I've never seen crowd control like it. DJ Sai at the last HTID in Victoria Warehouse in Manchester. I went there earlier this year. I think it was back in February, right? And with this, it was perfect. I'm going to say the perfect set for me. He was playing all the big Sign Unknown quash bangers, right? And what he was doing was, he was mixing the tuning, wasn't letting the second breakdown come in. Sorry, I'm reading the comments at the same time, so if I'm pausing, it's just because I'm reading at the same time. And DJ Side mixing the tune out, keeping everyone on the dance floor engaged. If he's seen a tune was getting that love and appreciation, you could see. As a DJ, I was seeing it, but obviously he had a better view than I did. And he could see people that were just tuned into a track. He would do a little scratch on the bridge instead of mixing it out and let it break down again. And there was times where he was like, oh, maybe this tune didn't quite work as well as he thought it was going to. Next minute, bang, mixing the next tune, but he's got the crowd in the palm of his hand. I can honestly say I think it's the best live psychology DJ set I've ever seen, ever. And that big statement. And that's bounce, that's house, hardcore, hard trance, anything, hard house. It was amazing to watch. I was sober, I was driving, so it wasn't like I was lost in the moment, wrecked or anything like that. I would just watched it, and it was a masterclass at work. Fantastic. Let's have a look. Mix out. So this is a thing again. I was talking to John. John just made the general bass ICU shout there. I can't remember who he was talking to. I can't remember. I just don't want to name them actually, because I don't know if they want to be named. But he was talking to someone about the general bass ICU track, and he played the full extended version. And I was like, "Is this a different version?" He was like, "No, I just played the full extended piece out. Like, this is the best part of the track." And it was fantastic. Digital Lover is unreal as well. I never heard that until we got Callan-Lee, which is a banger. Callan-Lee did a fantastic version. I first heard Digital Lover. Obviously, it's Insight, but it's Sign Unknown again. Was it I can't remember which, HTID. It was one of the earlier ones, 2008, 2009. And I remember hearing it, and it was one of them tunes when you played it over and over and over again. And then, like, you'd get to, like, a certain part. That's another one of those tunes when you heard it, you would listen to the full track. You wouldn't just listen to, like, the first breakdown, the kickback. There was so much going on. I've got a bit of a hot take. It's just popped into my head about this, actually. Do you think that people are primed now as a raver that they know that, oh, okay, there's going to be the song structures are that structured that's why they do get bored? So let's say we've got track A here, and let's say it's a remix of Rhythm of the Night, right? I'm just using that as an example because I always do. That it comes, right, tune comes in, oh, here's the big breakdown, this is the rhythm of the night, oh yeah, and then it kicks in, right? And are people that primed now to boring producers and productions where it's a producer's fault, possibly, where it's a copy and paste job? Many people have just, and you can go into the back catalogues of a lot of record labels and artists where they've simply just copied and pasted the first breakdown, and they've just basically made it an extended 6-minute track, but it's essentially to the first part of the track and the second part of the track glued together by a little bridge. I think it's lazy and boring. I think that's maybe got something to answer for it. People in the rave scene, especially bounce and hardcore, are probably just like, oh, well, we know the second breakdown is going to be the same because, or with a slight deviation, and maybe that's why people are bored of it. I know TikTok's got a lot to answer for, but I think there's some producers maybe need to be held accountable as well. I think that's definitely something that's worth considering as well. I think that when we that's what I remember my question. Let's have a look. Sorry, Don, if I missed your question there. Build up throughout the whole song. See, what I used to like is seeing old school music. You'd hear old school tunes years ago, and I'm gonna give someone credit for this because I quite like the analogy that they used. Steve Bates, we were working on a track together, and Steve Bates said to me, he goes, "What I like to do in my tracks, lights go down there." Sorry, I'm interrupted what I've said, but John's just said there, lights go down is a copy and paste, massive tune, but mix out of it early because the first breakdown's the same as the second, and it absolutely is. There should have been some variation in that, but there wasn't. But you know, here we are. But with Steve Bates, he said to me, "I like to do a heaven and a hell," and I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Well, if I'm making a fluffy, hands in the air record that's like, a big riff or a big piano, what I like to do is I like to have that moment in the first part of the track, and instead of copy and pasting it after the bridge and dropping it into the second part of the track, go like dark and gritty, or use acid, or use like darker stabs to spice it up, and reverse as well. If he's writing quite an obscure sort of darker record, have a bit of something in the middle that's just complete polar opposite." And he calls it heaven versus hell, and I quite like that analogy because it works massively. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, it keeps the track interesting. It keeps the listener interested. In some cases, it sounds like different records. There's a tune from back in the day, and it was I think it was Piano Man Blurred. It was, and it was you know, the girls who are boys who like boys to be girls, and it had the piano, but the last break before it kicked back in again, it had that acid sound, and it sounded like a good sorry, I'm catching up as well. It had that like a bit darker and more sinister sort of acid stabs, and as it kicked back in, and I think that part of music now has gone a little bit. I think there's ways that you can structure your tracks. If you're not that type of person who likes the darker stuff, think maybe change your chord progressions up and things like that. Like, you want this to be interesting. You want your tracks to, you want people to notice your tracks. If it sounds the same all the way through, there's a good chance that people won't play it all. They'll play 20 seconds of it on the breakdown. It kicks in and the mixing straight out, and within 20 seconds you've had 40 to 60 seconds of your track played. And does that really count as a play? I'm going to say no, it doesn't. Let's see what else we've got in here. So with I want to dance. There's layers to it, and I get that. I absolutely do. If anyone has got any questions, just let me know. I've got one question here that I'm going to go through, but then if anyone else wants to ask questions, just let me know. Someone said this is come from anonymous out of the off-record side of things. So this is, as a producer, how do you balance your loudness with keeping dynamics intact? Any techniques or any VSTs that you use in particular? I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to be pretty boring for the next minute or two, so please stay engaged on this one. What I do is I keep everything super simple. I get the kick drum that I like. So I write my track first and foremost. What I tend to do is I'll write melodies, chord progressions, have the vocal, have little bits of ear candy, have all of these pieces as a sketch. I call it a sketch. I send John a 32 bar loop, maybe 32 or 64 bar loop. It'll have all the IDs in at different elements playing at different times. Dom, go ahead, ask the question. And what I tend to do is I'll send him that, and that's the music side of the track done. So, like, I've got all the elements there. So what I would then do is I would load up my percussion, my kicks. Yes, we're there. Well, I'll get onto that one in a minute. So I'll start off with a kick drum every time. I use Span. I use the mixer on FL, and I try to do this. I put my kick drum at -6. It's a good space where it leaves enough headroom for mastering later. I keep everything ultra simple. So what I will do is have the kick drum in there. Does it need anything? I tend to use a kick that's going to work over a kick that needs a whole load of work. I remember watching a James Diamond tutorial, and he was like, I'm going to teach you how to make trance music. This is nothing against James Diamond, by the way. I really, really rate the guy, but this was an old tutorial he did back in like 2016, 2017. And I remember him putting so much like effects and things like that on his kick, and I was like, for me, I just take that kick away and put another kick in that works, that fits. Don't force something to the mix if it shouldn't be there. And so with this, find the right kick that's needed. In fact, before you do any of your production, go through all of your sample packs, pick out all the kicks that you think would fit your style, and just put it in. And start from there. So, by the way, I'm reading the comments. I'm just going to answer this question, then I'll get onto the comment section as well. So, from there, I'll have my kick drum in the mix. I'll do a 16 bar loop. I'll start to add elements. I'll start to add a clap, right? Get a clap that fits the vibe I want. What am I wanting? I want something housey, so it'll be short and snappy, like a little 909 clap. I'm wanting something big and sort of trancy. I'll look for something like a reverb clap. It depends what the mission statement is that we're doing at that time. So then what I will then do is add the clap in, get a bit of a groove going with it. Am I just doing, on the 2 and the 4, or am I adding a little bit of spice and adding some double claps in, reverse claps, things like that? And then from there, turn the volume up, get it sounding as it should be. What does it need? Is it clashing at all with the kick? Does it need any EQ? Does it need compressed so it sits above the kick, or is it too much? Do I need to pull some things away from it? Do I need to EQ out some of the nasty sounds? I go from there. With a kick and clap, I think that's near enough all you need. It's getting the right sounds. And then I'm not going to go through every element here, by the way. I'm going to just go through how I approach keeping the dynamics. What I do is I'll start to add all the other elements in. So you've got your drums, and once the drums are complete and I've got them sounding as I want them, using things like time, frequency, and pitch. They're my 3 sort of secret weapons for drums. Time, so when it actually hits. So if I've got something hitting on every 8th note, I might move it slightly to the left, slightly to the right. So then if there's other things hitting on them 8th notes, it punches through easier. So time helps massively. And the basic things like 4 to the floor and having a clap on the 2 and the 4 and having the hi-hat on the offbeat. These are all like just time-based things. Obviously, there's frequencies. So if you've got, sometimes I'll layer claps into my tracks. I'll have like quite a low thuddy clap that hits, and that will be in a certain area in the frequency spectrum, and then I'll have a higher clap as well. I'm sorry if this is boring some of you, I do apologize, but I know there's people out there who will appreciate this as well. And then I'd have a higher clap that I would layer together. I'd find a nice balance with them. Sometimes claps, I'll pitch them, so like as with any sort of instrument, and get it sounding right. What I'll do is I'll then group them together, and then I would start EQing them together. I'd start compressing them together. Whatever it needs to sort of brighten up. If it needs saturation, I'd do that. And then from there, what I would then do is, when we're talking about, so we've covered time, we've covered frequency space, and the other thing that within this, what was the third thing? So we've done time, we've done pitch, and then obviously in the frequency spectrum as well. I wouldn't have a whole load of like 5 bongos playing at the same time, because there's a good chance they're probably going to be sitting in the same frequency area. So what I'll do is I might have a bongo or 2 that's got like a little rhythmic sound going, and in the high end I might have a little like closed hat or something like that that's got a bit of rhythm and things like that going. And then when you play them together, they're not fighting for that one space in the frequency. It's actually filling it out pretty well. I'm not going to bore you any further with this, but what I would then do is have your bass line in, bring the bass line volume up. What does it need? Does it need EQ? Does it need compressed? Right. Same goes for your melodies. Same goes for your pads. Same goes for your pianos. Everything. The production thing, which I'll go into in other videos. I'm going to professionally make videos for this, how I do it. And then when it comes to the back to your initial question, the mastering side of things, and things like that, what I do is I mix as I go. And when I think a track's almost finished, I'll send a message to John and I'll say, right, this is at 80%, this is at 90%. What do you think of this? Before I start adding things like automation, before I start, really polishing the record up, I need to know that you're happy with it. If you're happy with all the sounds that's used and everything like that. And if you give me the thumbs up, I can spend an hour, 2 hours actually cleaning the record up and making it into a decent sounding record. Once that's done, bear in mind what I said at the beginning, that kick's sitting at -6. I've mixed everything around the kick. So obviously that includes any effects and everything that's needed. Once I'm happy with that, I export a pre-master, take it to the car. How does that sound? There should be loads of dynamics because there's no master on it just now. You should have decent dynamics. It should sound decent when all the drums are playing, all the bass is playing, all the elements are playing. It should sound pretty dynamic on the breakdown with like pads, sub basses, things like that. Should all sound pretty sweet. And once you're happy with that, like I I say this, I can master and I have mastered my own stuff. I like to have somebody objectively do it rather than have an attachment to it. This is where I think I thrive in getting a turnaround fairly quickly. Sorry, I'm just checking the chats as well. I get a quick turnaround on a master because I use CLSM mastering. So the John Doe, if you don't know who that is, fantastic mastering engineer. And the reason I do that is because he's not attached to that record. I've sat there and I've put a whole lot of effort and time into writing this record. I'm trying to make it perfect. What he does, he gets my pre-master, and I've done everything I can to get it sound as good as I can. And then he goes, right, this is what it would need for a decent master to turn up. So he'd do the master, get it back, and 9 times out of 10, it's come back right. When it's not come back as I wanted it, it's usually down to a mixing error that I'd made. So whether that be, I've made something too loud in the mix, whether something's not punching through as it should, whether I need to add additional elements to a track. So that's where, if there's a mistake, it's always on my end. John always sends back a crisp master, and I'm sure John G, who's listening, can attest to that as well. Whenever he hears one of those masters, he's like, yep, he's done the business there. Right, sorry, I'm just going to catch up with these as well. Let's have a look. So Dom asked a question. Jesus Christ, there's a few things here. Should promoters be stricter with green rooms before gigs? Absolutely, yes. I'm going to tell a quick story in here about my personal experience with a green room, which I think it's quite a funny story, to be honest with you. I've actually got quite a lot of, come to think of it, when you talk about green rooms, there's a lot of weird shit happening in green rooms. I personally think so this is from Dom. I personally think if you're on stage just before and after, then they should be the only ones allowed in the green room, not everyone and their mates. I absolutely bang on agree with that. With the story I'm about to tell now, you will understand why. Green rooms are mad. 99% aren't even apart from the maniac that's eating a bag of drugs like their Skittles. class. And booked artists grab a drink and use the toilet. Get that. Love a good green room. I go pale when I walk in. There's like 37 room 2 DJs. Oh yeah, I get that. John Doe is a bollocks. I agree. Right, I've caught up with the questions. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then we'll sort of sign up after I've talked about this, because it's a really good story, this one. I got booked for Spain. It was a club called, it was for what's that, Howard, I forget. Howard's Pure Green Room is a bit mad. Regulars thinking they can just go in and on the stage. Yep, I agree. Some people feel entitled. I know the DJ, I know a DJ on, I know the promoter, let me in. I don't agree with it. It should be the artist who's on 2 hours either side. You shouldn't be sitting in there all night anyway. I think it takes away from what you're doing. But people on stage is a whole different discussion. It absolutely is. It kills the vibe a lot of the time. I've been at gigs, and I know John G can back me up on this, where we've been at them together, where there's been more people in and around the DJ box than there has been on the dance floor. And it's like, what's going on? Why do you want to associate in and around the DJ box? For me, this is the nerd in me coming out. I'd love to pull back on that a little bit and just have like a DJ sitting out the way, as long as you can see the dance floor, people dancing. There's this like, and this has been in now 25 years at least, since the Ibiza boom, I think it was, because this was never a thing, early 90s. But it's the everyone facing the DJ or the MC's side of things. Like years ago, you would have like a DJ playing, and you would see like many people like facing the other way, like just facing in like groups with the mates. Do you know what I mean? There would be like a group of mates here, and they're all looking at each other, and everyone's facing different directions. Now, if you go into a club, everyone's facing the same way, like they're at like a band, watching a band play. Personally, I think it does need to go back to how it used to be. Personally, that's just my point of view. Let me just see this. I'll tell you my Spain story in a second. DJs need space to clear their head before they go on sometimes. I agree, that's what it should be for. But are you really going to be clear in your head in a green room when you've got fucking 37 randomers who you don't know there? I've turned up to places before where I've been a DJ. There might be only one person I know on the flyer, like personally. So I've turned up to like a gig in like say Scotland or even some random places like Birmingham, places like that. I've turned up and I've maybe known one person, and it's not uncomfortable when you're walking and everyone's off their nuts. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, "Hey mate, how's it going?" And like, "Are you the promoter?" Or like, not "Are you the promoter?" Or, "Are you a DJ?" or whatever. Like, and you're just trying to get to know people, and it's like 1 in 5 are actually there to perform, and it's like, get on the dance floor and enjoy yourself. Stop lingering. Little groupies, and most of them are men. Let's take a look. Fucking hate it. Put DJs behind a wall. Yep, we'll see who loves it. That I agree. I absolutely used to love Flamingo's nightclub, Blackpool. When it was in the balcony, I'm quite tall. I could see over onto the dance floor, and you can see people's dance play records. Nobody's looking at you because nobody can see you. They can maybe see the top of your cap or whatever, but they can't see you. And I used to love that. When they moved it on the stage, it felt like everyone sort of looking at you, in and around you, people behind you. I remember there used to be a couple of lads who used to do, like, there were the light jocks, and they like basically worked in and around the club, and you'd be DJing on the bottom stage where the MCs used to be, and you turn around, they're standing above your head, and I'm just like, fuck me, this is a bit much. But I did like it when it was at the top, because you were distant away from people. If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure the old 051, I never went in there, but the 051 used to be up on the balcony before they moved it to the stage, and that looked much better. I've seen a couple of videos. I think it was Harry from Friday Night Posse who did that. But I loved Flamingos for that. There's a couple of venues that do that. I do like being intimate with the crowd, but if it was in the corner maybe and everyone was on the dance floor, that'd be perfect. I don't like where everyone's front facing. I'll tell you my Spain. Yeah, Pleasure Rooms was a weird layout though. I've seen pictures of Pleasure Rooms. That I don't think I'd like that personally. It was because if I'm not mistaken, you couldn't see the people dancing on the bottom floor because you physically didn't have a view of it. I don't like when you can't see them because you don't know if the tunes are working and whatnot. If you're just there playing and hoping for the best, I don't think that works that too much. But Pleasure Rooms is a shout as well. I'm sure they had a weird DJ box. I remember John telling me about having to climb into the DJ box when he went to play there. Right. So my Spanish story, whilst there's no questions there, I'll share this with you, then I'll shoot off. This was the second time I played in Spain, and I think it was Venezia I was playing. And what was it? I'm not going to give names because obviously that's just being a bit of a dick. But in fact, I don't know who they were, so that the proper things to it. Anyways, I was in the club and I was enjoying the vibe in the club. Anyone who's been in Venezia will know what the layout's like. So you go into the club, the DJ box is right in like the middle of the club, and then you've got like the big dance floor goes back, and the bars actually be behind the DJ box. So I was sort of socialising in and around there. This young guy goes with me. He's like, "Come on, boss, we'll take you to this." He called it green room, private sort of area, whatever. I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And I'll try not to get anyone into trouble, but I went up there, and as I was going up, bear in mind I'm the only English native language speaker that there was there, so there was a bit of a language barrier because I was on my own. But I went in, and it was like depression, but everyone was like proper monged out on the sofas. I'm like, what's happened here? Someone like left a fucking, has there been a gas leak or something? So I went in and it's like, oh, help yourself, mate. And there was a coffee table, I don't know, about 4 foot by 3 foot. And it was just full of, I think it might have been some sort of speed or amphetamines or whatever. And I'm not joking you. I was just like, what the fuck? And this young guy who took me in there was like, mate, help yourself. And he just stuck his head in, big sniff. And I was just like, what is going on here? But they were all absolutely tuned to the moon. It was, when you go into a green room, a lot of the time, it's like, hi mate, how's it going? Da, 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 and trying to get like a chit chat going. These were all fucking zombies. I was sitting there just like, you know, like, chilling out, whatever. I was wanting to get back into the club, to be honest with you. I was enjoying the vibe. I was sitting there, and this fella, absolute zonked beside me, and he's there, and I was just like, he was started speaking Spanish to me, and I was like, "Hi mate, I'm English, whatever." I was showing him my phone on the UK, and he was like just absolutely gone, and then he just one hand here, just one hand leaned over, big scoop in his hand, sat there. That was him fucking wired. But yeah, it does sound like some weird speed that, but right, it was tactical what they were doing, and I'll share this with you. If you do know, Gary Select is a bit of a god over there. So it went, the DJ sets, if I remember correctly, was Ivan Jazz, Splas, me, Gary Select. This was sort of early on in the night. Ivan Jazz was playing sort of classics, Spanish classics, right? And people, if you've been to the Spanish rave, you'll see how they dance, they kick the legs, and it's they treat it like a sprint when it's a marathon on a night out, put it that way. And it's high energy all night. And they were in there, all just absolute zonked. But that group of, I don't know, 14, 15 people who were in there, the back end of my set, and when Gary went, it was mainly for Gary's set, to be honest with you, but when Gary Select went on, they're all them lot, they just came to life like robots. It was like someone just switched them on. And honestly, I've never seen so many tuned in people to a DJ set in my life. Like the front row was all these people. They just literally come and see Gary Select. He's like a god to them, right? And every mix he was bringing in, they were just like cooking, hanging over the DJ box like this. And they're just giving it like beans, and I've never seen punching and kicking. It was like a mosh pit. It was unbelievable, and I was like, "Them drugs work, then," you know. But yeah, that's my drug story. I got offered that, and I was like, "I'd rather just have a drink," and he was like, "No drink, just powder," and I was like, "Have you got like Jaeger?" And he was like, "No, just powder," and I was like, oh, "Here we go." So, anyways, it was a good night nonetheless. The drive back was wild though. Any other final questions before I finish up for today? It's been a bit of a random one today, but I'm on holiday and, you know, just basically having a chat and making sure I stick to my doing this weekly side of things. Pleasure Rooms was mad. Window cleaning a ladder to get in the DJ box, mental. That's typical. I remember when Maxime's DJ box was at the side of the stage. Sounds like some weird speed. That ha ha ha. Yeah, exactly. I do a massive stage at the DJ box, tiny inside. Right. Any final questions before I finish off today? It has been a little bit all over the place. I've talked about production. I've talked about, you know, editing tracks. I've talked about the speed story. I've got a few like that. Like the Spanish did it differently. I remember going out to the car. This is the one last one I'll share with you. The car park in Venezia Club. You go out, and for whatever reason, like it's very much like the old clubs. You know, like when you go to somewhere like a Monroe's, and I'm sure Monroe's had a car park. I'm sure, you know, a lot of the old clubs would have like a car park next to them. And this is the same thing. Venezia was up in the mountains. It was a club that was, I assume, about 200 car parking spaces. And you go out there, like, I just go out for a catch of breath of fresh air or whatever. And there'd be people like DJ decks set up in the back of the car. They'd have their own drink and stuff like that in the boot, and you go down there and they're just offering you bottles of whiskey and whatnot there. That was a wild experience. I'm sure anyone who's been and done it, I'm sure John's done it, and maybe a couple of others in the chat who've done the Spanish gigs, and them cars are full of random shit. I remember there was a a socket box, and he was like, "Do you want a drink? Whatever." This guy I knew from France, from when I was in France, he came to the Spanish gig. He's like, "Do you want a drink or whatnot?" And he'd give us a Jaeger, give us a couple of cans and whatnot. He's like, "Do you want any bits?" And I was like, "No, mate, I'm all right." Got out a socket set and opened up the socket set box, and again, just bags in where there should be like a 22mm socket, and a 20mm socket, an 18mm socket. There's just bags stuffed in. that was a bit of a wild one. Well, anyways, thanks for everyone for listening. I hope I haven't bored you too much. And again, submit your questions. Submit if you've got any questions for next week. I have got some good guests coming up. It's some very, very interesting guests. And I'm not just saying that this isn't just like a pull to get you back in. I will announce it before they're on. I've got a couple of people who were a bit left field who've reached out to me, who I've got no relationship with, but they went, "I like what you're doing. I would like to be involved." So we've got a couple of really good perspectives from other people who are not necessarily in our Northwest scene, but have been part of the bounce scene in different areas, whether that be in Spain. But I won't give too much away, but they want to put their perspective on it and see what the current bounce scene's like wherever they are. And I think it's quite good to look at. Obviously, I'm going to go through a couple of lists of guests that we'll be having, but if I do in advance announce who it is, I will put out questions as well, so you can ask them questions if you want to. I've been Brad, as usual. I'll see you again next week. Let me know if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.